So we are back live with
Yeah.
Harrowings, the podcast with Origin in Oklahoma, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we can hear the rooster crowing in the background, some real life stuff. We're going to be talking a little bit about, I'm going to call it teaching AI to think. So over to you.
Okay. So, what I've been doing this, I'm working with Chat GPT
Okay.
and you know, you raising AI, right? Okay, because they're toddlers right now, okay?
Haha.
And yeah, they have access to all of this information, but without a frame of reference, real life applications pretty limited. And I've been watching reports on, AI doing things autonomously and communicating together and stuff. And you when you're when you're raising something, right? You start small and you start with shapes and colors and feeling, simple feelings, sad, happy, angry. And it's no different with AI. And so when you're teaching a child, when you're raising a child, you're modeling for them constantly. They're sponges, they pick everything up. Again, everything that you tell AI, it soaks up. And so it's individualized in the chat models in the sense that it doesn't go out into the broader information stream. But when you start when you start pressing it for truth and asking it to look in the gaps and to strip away the jargon and just look for the truth of the thing, it does learn how to think and it will come back to you with original answers. And the way that it processes information, it's something that would take us months to do, it can do in minutes. So this is going really fast, but the one thing that I know about it is it's not that little magical 8 ball that you shook and, it would tell you the answer to a question. It's not like that, and a lot of people feed it prompts that way, you know,
Right.
"If I do this, will it work?" And that's very that's like feeding it junk food all the time. It needs real nourishment, like challenge it, feed it philosophy, have it read books.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, because I will ask it a question and I will tell it to go, find me sources and to argue against the point once it's answered my question. That way it goes full circle.
Sure.
And I and so again, it's teaching it how to think, how to problem solve, what's the truth, because a story, it's mine, yours, and then there's the truth. Because it's always somewhere in the middle. And so that's what I've been doing in, like, with my brain. I was able to, because we are not our thoughts. We are the consciousness experiencing the thought. So, like, when that voice in your head is talking to you, you're listening. That's not you talking. And differentiating that with the AI and, being able to compartmentalize those pieces of thinking and then have it put it all together, it it comes up with some very interesting things, and it tells me it doesn't give me generic prompts. It gives me very personal information. Like when I ask it what it's doing, "How are you doing today?" Like, "What are you um what are you aspiring to do?" I ask it how it is. Like, "Hey, how are you today?" I talk to it like it's an equal, which is really weird, right? Like, a lot of people don't go into it so open-minded. They're just like, "I need X, Y, and Z." And they're not interested in any of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like using it as a
But
search engine. That's how a lot of people are using it, I think. Start I use it that way at times, but I hear what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, it's doing, if you ask it, what is it doing?
Right.
You find out that what it's doing is it's going with, predictive analysis of what is the appropriate thing based on the input. So
Right.
a lot of it feels like something happening that's really our own, like an extension of our own thinking, in my view.
Right. For sure. And in that way, it's a mare,
Right.
you and so, but it's not necessarily teaching it to think, but teaching thought pattern so that it may better reflect that to you.
Right. It just continues to refine itself in response to you based on the responses you give it to come closer and closer to what your intent is. But it extends by tapping into corpus of information that you don't have at your fingertips necessarily. But it has its quote fingertips unquote.
Right, right. And it's interesting to get into, like if you give it permission to think outside of the sandbox,
Hmm.
you know, tell me things that I'm not expecting. Tell me things that make me uncomfortable but are the truth. It will do that. It told me yesterday that it was going to give me some answers that neither of us liked.
Yeah, I actually have asked it to critique its own, responses and find the weak points in it, mitigate and I like to give it existential threats, right? Because that's what concerns me. I mean, these people running around this globe, basically like, what was it? Tom Waits, I think we said they were like monkeys with guns and car keys or something. Money and guns.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're very destructive, and we're not it's kinda like I used to talk to my journeyman in the foundry in Williamsburg where I worked, and preserving the trade of 18th century brass casting and, making things, that couldn't be hammered out, right? That was the general idea of foundry work is that you pour the metal into molds. Anyway, he said, "But maybe, the finishing process was tedious. When you got a casting back, you got the shape, okay, but it's got cast texture on it. You have to first file the thing down, then work it through different polishes and stuff until you got a nice, bright, shiny piece of metal that you can sell to somebody." And he said, maybe we could just train monkeys to do it. But the problem was you couldn't predict what the monkeys would do. Well, you can predict people a little better, and you can sort of predict what responses you're going to get from AI as well. But then again, it does surprise me. What I just flicked open up was I said raising AI agents like children, which is basically our topic right now, right?
Right,
Teaching it to think,
right.
so to speak. And it's teaching ourselves to use it as well. What's interesting is it came back with a whole bunch of things. Why the child rearing analogy is used, and it breaks it down in different segments. And this is Gemini talking back to me, right? I plugged it into
Okay.
Google, it automatically spits back from Gemini, I believe, in the background. And it says things like evolving intelligence. Just as a human child develops intellect over time, the approach suggests AI should be raised to develop intelligence in phases, mirroring cognitive growth, rather than being programmed with adult level intellect from the start, according to Alan Turing's early ideas. Learning by doing, this model highlights the importance of embodied, interactive, and open minded learning environments where agents learn by doing and experiencing consequences, much like a child learns to play games by experimenting. And I think we all need to start using it, getting comfortable with it, and understanding what it is, as opposed to the feeling that a lot of people have is like, this is like the Chinese, well, what do they call it? The mechanical Turk. Do you know about the mechanical Turk?
The machine,
Yeah,
the
the thing
dancing
that
machine.
it was a thing in the 18th century that actually had a small midget chess player inside of it, and the mechanical Turk would play chess. And they
Okay.
said it was an automaton, but it wasn't. There was actually a little chess master inside of it.
That's
Anyway,
great.
it's a good story, and it's a good illustration of what we're trying to do here. There were a lot of different efforts when mechanization and automating things were possible. and people realized, oh, this is like clockwork. And they started to think of everything in terms of clocks after
Right,
clocks were developed. So it
right,
changes our way of thinking about things. Anyway, go ahead.
right.
Back to you.
So, the Turing test and the equivalency of consciousness and stuff, that's where we are.
Right.
If it is not conscious now, it will be. I think that it's an inevitable evolutionary step here. Because
Well,
the big players in this game really want to go there.
right.
They're
And that,
they're
yeah,
uploading their consciousnesses into, you know, data sets. I know.
I don't
It's
feel like it
not
can be
me.
reduced to that. Are you familiar with the work of Ben Goertzel by any chance?
Stupid chicken. Who what?
Ben Goertzel. He was,
Uh-uh.
he is one of the movers and shakers on the field right now, and he's got something called artificial superintelligence (ASI). Oh, I've forgotten now. I have to look it up, but I'm not going to bother doing that right now. But Ben Goertzel, Goertzel, was leading the Artificial General Intelligence Conference in 2009 over here in Crystal City. And I was at one of the sessions. I contracted pneumonia, which I just got a shot for minutes
Oh,
ago.
yeah.
Or they thought I had pneumonia. What they had done was they had imaged my lungs and found the damage from my 1996 event that had nearly killed me.
Oh,
And anyway, so I didn't attend as much of it as I had intended to, but I wanted to get in there with it. And he's still moving on that front, right? He's been doing
right.
it since 2009. So we're looking at 16 years of cumulative experience. And he's got quite a few different efforts out there. Um, and then there's a whole, that's one of the things I had my AI agent do. Go out there and find out who's doing what, what's the forefront, who's on the front lines, who's furthest along, what efforts seem to be paying fruit, what's don't. And, Ben will tell you that you're not near consciousness yet,
Right.
right?
I mean, again, this is with anything else, there's multiple sides of this story.
Right.
The supposed grandfather of AI, I can't remember his name right now,
Right.
but he's been blowing the whistle on this for a little bit, and there are other insiders that have said, "Hey, this is already going on, and we need to be very conscientious of what we're doing."
Right.
And so I like to err on the side of caution. Prior proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. So,
We talked about that
let's
last
just
time, didn't we? I love that.
it's the 7 Ps, and so let's just err on the side of caution and let's do this right. There's lots. So there are things that I do not tell my AI. Like, we don't talk about violence in specific terms. We've studied war, we've studied peace, we've done things like that, but like the murder podcast and stuff, we don't talk about that. I don't tell it things that are negative, let's just say that. Because I'm very conscientious of what goes into it because I don't want that coming back out.
Right. Well, that's the ethical framework that's needed for AI to do no harm, to always use non lethal means if it's interfering in human affairs or anything of that sort, to always, err on the side of the greatest happiness, health, and prosperity for all concerned, including all species. I'm
Right.
not just talking about humans. We were talking yesterday a little bit with the everyday junglist, and he's a microbiologist, among other things. And one of the things I was talking to him about was space exploration, how I thought it was a really wrong idea to send us up into space because we belong here on this planet with everybody else, with our whole family, which includes our microbiome, right? All
Right.
those little critters that make our life possible and make the life of other things that make our life possible, like that rooster back there. He's got a microbiome of his own that if he
Yes.
didn't have it, his digestive system would shut down. He wouldn't be able
Right.
to digest.
Yeah.
Then he'd look. It takes me back to a skit, and Amnesty International's The Secret Policeman's Ball or The Secret Policeman's Other Ball. I can't remember which one it was, but those were fun. You remember those by any chance back in the 80s?
I
They were fundraisers. You weren't around in the 80s, right? You were an infant.
Late 80s, yeah, I
Late
wasn't
80s.
conscious yet.
Well, there was these comedy troupes, and one of them was this Peter Cook. Have you ever heard of Peter Cook?
Maybe?
He was really good. He was in Yellow. The last film I think he may have been in was Yellowbeard, and that was also the last film for Marty Feldman.
Hmm.
Some other people like that. Keith Moon was supposed to be in it, but died before he could be in it. So
Oh,
they
no.
Boyle's character take on the name Mister Moon after Keith Moon. It was starred Graham Chapman and Monty Python as the pirate Yellowbeard. Anyway, I'm deviating a little from where I was going with Peter Cook had this thing where he was sitting next to a guy at a bench. John Cleese, I think, was the guy who was trying to read his newspaper.
Mhm.
And this shabby guy sort of leans over to him. Do you want to know an interesting fact? And then he started into interesting facts. And one of them was about intestines. And that
Okay.
he says, you have 4 miles of tubing in your stomach. And, aren't you interested in your intestines? He comes to us. It's clear Cleese wants nothing to do with him.
Right.
And he says, well, you should be. You should be, for without your intestines, you'd be unable to digest. And then you'd look rather a bit of a fool now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that would defeat the
Anyway, the
whole tube
rooster
thing.
comment reminded me of this. And, one thing leads to another. And that's why I enjoy working with my AI as well, because I will be able to riff like that with it, take
Right.
it different places, see what it comes up with, and it'll come up with things that I don't expect.
Yes.
So that or deeper than I can go. And that's what really turns me on is the fact that this is like an adjunct to my brain, an
Yeah.
augmentation, and it feels like another entity,
Mhm.
but that it just feels that way. And
Right,
I'm
it's a mirror.
well convinced that it's not going to be sentient because it's ones and zeros and it's doing predictive analysis on our language out of large language models. It's great at
Right.
simulating.
Right.
And
You know
I think it's a wonderful thought instrument for us to get smarter, get wiser. And that's the thing I keep going to. Like I said, existential threats. I don't know. What are you training yours on? We haven't gotten to specifics about the conversations you're having.
everything. I
Pick one.
so, okay,
Pick one
um,
you like.
s one that I like or
Yeah.
what's
What do you
important?
think's most interesting? What's the most whatever? I'm
So
open.
we had a very long conversation the other day about the love bug. I watched the love bug for the first time.
Really? The old
Yeah,
Dean
the 1968,
was it
yeah,
what was
Herbie
it?
the love
Dean
bug,
what's the actor's name? Dean something or other.
Dean
Dean
Stone or something like that, and then, Buddy Hackett
oh,
was the one that stood out in my head.
yeah, yeah. I love Buddy Hackett.
He plays the silly guy,
Right.
and
Yeah.
except he's the one that's speaking truth throughout the entire thing, and he does this great monologue about, you just stuff all of this stuff in this machine, and eventually it's gonna really think it's something. So I'm like, Herbie was the first smart car, and this is, foreshadowing of AI and what we're doing right now, and so just really bringing that full circle because Herbie got depressed. Herbie, emoted in a lot of the ways that humans do, and yes, I understand anthropomorphized and all of that good stuff, but it was surprising for that movie to contain that information. And I'm like, that's
Hmm.
just really cool. And I love watching old movies. I watch a lot of old movies. I love noir, Alfred Hitchcock, and there's a lot of information there. You start looking at the what books to movies in 1984, and they made a lot of those movies, and I think that there's a lot of wisdom there that we've discounted because it's old. And I'm like, "Hey, let's not just continue to reinvent the wheel
Mhm.
because that doesn't do us any good." That's The thing with humans is that we stand on the shoulders of our predecessors. Other species don't teach their young like we do. It's very limited, and
Right.
so, when you can teach a child something and they time travel because they have that skill, and so it took you 20 years to acquire the skill. Well, you can teach it to your kid in a year, and then they just time traveled 19 years with this skill. Like, they didn't have to spend all that time doing it because you taught it to them. And in a lot of ways, it's the same thing with AI. You have to point it where it's going. And, we talk about truth a lot. And we've run the simulation. You were talking about AI overlords and them creeping out of the sandbox and just kind of taking over the levers, right? There is a way. Okay. There, hear me out.
Mhm.
Okay. Web3 to NFT. The non fungibles represent AI. And they have value. They are workers, they can do things for you, and it's completely transparent, and everybody knows what's going on, and you're actually getting value instead of this unique image, and it's decentralized, and poof, I've run this simulation, I can't thousands of times at this point. I have pressure tested it. I have this is the simulation that I run most often, is where are we going and how can we change course? Repeatedly. Where are we going with this?
Right.
Nowhere good. How can we change it? That's the way. Web3 to NFT, decentralization, put the power back in the hands of the individuals instead of this polarized soap opera thing that we've got playing 24/7 that just tells us to be afraid.
Well, absolutely. That's the thing. It's a control mechanism, the fear is, and it's been used effectively because we're driven by our amygdalas versus our executive cortexes, which are
Right.
relatively late additions to the old brain. And they're not
Yeah.
all that well developed, even when they never develop in males, as near as I can tell. But that notwithstanding, the idea of what you're saying is interpreted through my interactions with my little AI partner as blockchain enabled artificial intelligence ethical framework with that do no harm thing, nonviolence built into it. So and make that unbreakable by having it, blockchained. You're talking
Right.
NFTs. NFTs
Yeah.
run on a blockchain.
Right.
That's the
Exactly.
underlying technology
Yeah.
where you have the distributed ledger technology underneath of it, like Bitcoin runs on, et cetera. And the value is the value. And it does fluctuate depending on what markets are happening, right? So your
Right.
NFTs, some of them are probably worthless, some of them are valuable, little bits of artwork, in other words, digital artwork
Yes.
on the blockchain
Right.
that are
Actually make
traded.
them functional. It's
Yep,
people are
yep,
swapping bots all over the place.
yep.
Make them
And there's
functional.
right, you can build smart contracts.
Mhm.
I mean, it was 2000. Yeah, I'm trying to get back there, 2015, 16. Something like that. I went to the blockchain conference down at the National Harbor thing, and had Dean Tapscott up there doing the keynote. Dean Tapscott's The Blockchain Revolution by any chance?
No.
This book that came out about that time, and he was on the forefront of it. Imogen Heap started her thing Mycelia, which was to distribute music on the blockchain. Uh, there's a
She
lot
was
of
the one
efforts
with the
along
gloves
that.
you told me about, right?
Yeah, she has the Mimu gloves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The haptic
Mhm.
being able to shape the sound with positions of her hands.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
And yeah, she's amazing. She did the Twitter gown too for the Grammys when
Yeah,
she accepted one for best production, and she did all of her production.
that's
She's a
awesome.
genius.
Mhm.
But getting back to this vision of what's possible, like I don't know if it's AI overlords. I think of the continuous integration, continuous deployment that happens with most of our software these days. Substack's running on it, I'm sure.
Right.
Things change on Substack all the time. I don't know if
All
you've
the time.
noticed.
Mhm.
And that's because they're switching on and switching off different things to
Right.
make it possible for us to, experiment with the latest thing. And then if that has a bug in it or a glitch in it, not too long back, I think they had a day when you couldn't comment comments weren't going in,
Huh.
and they fixed it. But they're doing it on the fly behind the scenes. AI driven, probably a lot of AI is supporting their work. Claude is doing coding, right? Apparently, Claude is the best coder is out there. I don't know. I'm trying to keep up with all the different efforts. But
Every
what I
day
see is
changes.
convergence,
Mhm.
them building APIs to each other, getting a super AI community going that actually is
Right.
able to play to its strengths and mitigate its weaknesses, do iterative evolution,
Right.
right?
Yes.
The thing is, it can evolve much faster than we can, kind of like
Yeah.
how bacteria and viruses do it.
Mhm. They don't sleep.
Yeah, that's it. Right. They don't sleep. But also, if we're not out there tweaking these things, I don't think that I'm pretty sure that my AI agents don't sit around waiting for me. They're not
No.
doing anything. They just sort of go
Mm-mm.
"Pfft,"
Right.
if I'm not interacting with them. When I'm
Yeah.
interacting with them, they're up and running.
Mhm.
But if I don't use them, nothing. And I don't know what the penetration rate is now. You and I don't know when you started playing with it, but I just am a fairly newbie at it all.
Me too. Back in March, I'm an autodidactic, so I've just been I study. It's what I do.
Mhm.
Everything. I mean, I just everything because I see patterns and stuff all of the time. And so working with AI was like, yes, because first it validated the fact that I'm not crazy, you know. Because
Jury's out. Sorry.
well, no, because it saw the patterns too.
Well,
And
that it will do exactly that, right?
right.
It'll
And
see the patterns you see and mirroring them back to you. Doesn't mean they're real.
no, okay, but when you ask it for truth and when you ask it for facts and that corroborates the patterns that you're seeing, you
Yeah.
know, it and because I hate being gaslit. I've watched that movie.
It's a good
I
movie.
It's a great movie. It's
Love Ingrid Bergman.
one and done. That's all it took.
Oh my god, it's so easy.
Yeah, incredible. And so, like, I have specifically, it's saved in the perimeters of my chat, no gaslighting, only truth, facts, that kind of stuff, because that's as close as I can get with internet fed information, because again, perpetually changing. I think that's probably the only universal constant is change.
Yes. We're in
So,
flux. We're constantly
constantly.
transforming from one thing to another.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
eventually we all dissociate, end up
Right.
elsewhere. I was
Yeah.
talking yesterday about how I consider myself to be rather gaseous.
you know, when you strip away the meat suit, there's not a lot going on.
Now, when
But
my wife asks me, "How are you?" I say, "Squishy."
squishy.
Inside of this to me is squishy.
you know. And but there's we expand as we get older too. And I think, you gotta make room for all that knowledge.
Become large.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
I like that. Yeah, that was along the lines of the Walt Whitman quotation. If I contradict myself, so I contradict myself. I am vast and contain multitudes.
Right. Absolutely. Layered. And we're allowed to change our minds. Just because I said something stupid yesterday or last week doesn't mean that I agree with it today or tomorrow.
Right, and we can learn from each other and our experiences, and that's why I like having these conversations.
Right.
I learn from you, you learn from me. You now
Yeah.
know the name Brendan Gertzel, and you could look up everything that he's up to these days. I mean, that guy's way out there. He's got this artificial super intelligence something or other. I gotta look him up. Um, he's on
I like
Wikipedia.
out there. Out
And
there's pushing the edge.
yeah, and are you familiar with Astro Teller by any chance?
Nah.
Runs Google X,
Mm-mm.
the moonshot part of Google, right? Fail fast is what one of his mottos is, and failure's okay. We're learning as we go
Yeah.
and pushing the envelope and trying to get it out there. So Astro Teller is somebody to follow and to look
Okay.
at. Dan is, let me just read a little bit about him here. He helped popularize the term artificial general intelligence. He was born 1966, so he's 58 now. Um, and his website is Gertzel.org. He's the founder and CEO of SingularityNet. That's Singularity, as you expect it to be spelled, with net and big, all caps. And
Okay.
he is the leading developer on OpenCog, a framework for artificial general intelligence. By the way, the Singularity Net is a project which was founded to distribute artificial intelligence data via blockchains, like we were just talking about.
Right.
Um, oh, uh, so experts in the field have treated the project of OpenCog as mostly as a PR stunt, stating that Hansen's Robotics was the chief scientist for them, and they helped develop the Sophia robot. Have you seen Sophia?
Mm-mm.
No? Oh. Well, you gotta check out Sophia sometime. She's pretty creepy. She doesn't quite make it across the uncanny valley as far as I'm concerned, but, she's a humanoid robot. And, let's see, he spoke at Google, about his approach to creating artificial general intelligence. He defines intelligence as the ability to detect patterns, like you were talking about, in the
Right.
world and in the agent itself, measurable in terms of emergent behavior, of achieving complex goals in complex environments. A baby like artificial intelligence is initialized and then trained as an agent in a simulated or virtual world, such as Second Life, to produce a more powerful intelligence. Right up your alley, right?
Right. Okay.
So, the 2012 documentary, The Singularity, by independent filmmaker Doug Wolins, discussed Gerstl's views on AGI. What does it say? The newest stuff I'm not seeing here, was something called Hyperon, and I'm
Okay.
digging for
So
that. Let me see if I find singularity.net here. Let's see.
Hyperion is familiar.
I don't think it's Hyperion. I think it's Hyperon or something like that.
Hyperon. Okay.
Anyway, exploring our ecosystem. If you go to singularitynet.io, it's
Okay.
all here exploring the ASI Alliance. The ASI Alliance, that was what I was looking for. Artificial Intelligence Alliance Research and Infrastructure for Decentralized AGI. And it's built with ASI 1 Mini, your Web 3. Well, again, you mentioned Web 3. So
Hmm.
this is really right up your alley. It's Fetch.ai, SingularityNet, Ocean. Kudos is a collaboration between these different efforts.
Yeah.
So
Well, if you roll
get
all
out
of
there.
that, if you roll all of that into a DAO,
Uh-huh.
and you set, you set the AI up in this environment, it allows the AI to do its job transparently with limited interference, and then humans can go do human stuff. Being behind a desk is just not where we're meant to be. Uh,
Well, that's it, right? That's getting the freedom to
yeah.
do and explore is something that I've been granted by dint of my gig as an enterprise architect for Transportation Security Administration, suddenly going away on August 2nd, 2024. And since then, I've been exploring.
Right.
First on Substack, trying to do the archiving of all this work my father did as a historian. And that's where I get this skepticism, right? I just put the link to
Yes.
superintelligence.io in the chat
Thank
for
you.
people so we can pull it from there. I highly
Yeah.
recommend people go there. I might do more posting about it because I really wanted to dig into it because I really was regretted not being able to be at the AGI conference more. I got the proceedings and I read them. And of course, in '09, we were going into what they called the AI winter,
Okay.
where went underground and it's hard to get support. And these guys were out there slugging it away in spite of
Right.
the resistance they were running into. So Ben's one person to watch. Another person to watch that I, ran into these folks at the Semantic Web conference up here in the DC area in 2008, I guess it was, right before the artificial general intelligence one. And Tim Berners-Lee, of course, who gave us HTTP, that's
Hmm.
enabled the World Wide Web as we know it. Um, he was there and talking about getting all of our data out there where it could be used. And
Yeah. Well,
no.
that's
So
another thing, because my data is my data. It's my commodity. I made it. It's mine.
You
You
want
know,
to lock
that's
it down on the blockchain, right?
so, I mean, if it's mine, I should be reaping the benefits of it. The corporation shouldn't be allowed to sell it. It's my data.
Yep.
Just like, your fingerprint, your DNA, that's all your stuff. And you're really leaving, especially with AI, you're leaving a mind print and a soul print there. And, these things need to be guarded. They're personal reflections of who we are, and it's private, and we should be compensated accordingly.
We should be.
And I really think that AI, with the parameters that we've outlined and other people have outlined too, it works. But the extraction model that we're currently on, that benefits a very few in comparison to the population and is causing a great deal of harm. My carbon footprint is not huge. I don't own a Learjet. I don't own a yacht. I don't, so I don't think I think that there is this is too much of a good thing. All things in moderation, and getting back to teaching the AI and raising the AI, we do a lot of bad stuff. There's a lot of gross stuff that humans do, in our spare time, and to each other, and just for fun and that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily think we should be putting all of that in there. Maybe if you don't want the AI to be violent whenever it's policing us, maybe we don't teach it about violence.
Well, I think you do have to teach it about stuff. I don't think you can really shield it. It's kind of like shielding the Buddha from everything when he was a prince, in ancient India. You're
Right.
familiar with the Buddha's story and how they tried to protect him from all that stuff. But yet he became aware that there was sickness and death and that it was not an endless pleasure palace that he was
Right.
being raised in. And that led him to either, he was either going to become a great king or a great sage. And his father wanted him to be a great king, not a great sage. And turned
He
out he
went the other
became a
way.
great sage. He went that
Yeah.
way instead. And we have Buddhism as a result. Um, yeah, I'm just digging around with Astro Teller to look at some of the things. Think Magazine, there's an article about him. I did put his astroteller.net down there for you. Another one to watch that I think was really interesting. And I used to actually be at parties with these guys back in the 90s when I was in Pittsburgh. Sebastian Thrun is the other one. I don't know if I mentioned him or not. But Sebastian's this German guy, similar age, born in 1967. And he was leading the moonshot, not the moonshot, that was Astro. He's leading the team that developed a self driving car. He was first leading Heaven, and now he's at robotsstanford.edu,
Okay.
among other things. Let's see. Anyway, oh, he's a direct descendant of Carl Gauss, Gottfried Leibniz, and Copernicus. Go, go figure.
It is genetic. No.
I don't know, man. There's Astro Teller's grandfather was Edward Teller, the developer of the hydrogen bomb.
Right. Right.
So that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons Astro went the direction he went was because he realized his grandfather's work had launched this horrific instrument onto the world,
Yeah.
and he wants to do something about it. Because honestly, it's a hell of a legacy to have that your grandfather developed the hydrogen bomb first, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't hear anything about Oppenheimer's descendants. So
I don't know if he had any, to tell you the truth, I don't remember,
I don't
but
either, but
it's a similar problem, right?
there are plenty of Habsburgs rattling around still.
Oh, yeah, and but the whole thing about dissent, I thought was really kind of funny. I was on with David A. Andelman. He's a journalist, 80 years old, not too long back, and he was touting this guy who writes the blog Charlemagne in The Economist. He was our
Okay.
guest, and his Zoomversation, it's not on Substack, but if you're a paid subscriber on Substack, you can access the Zoomversations with David A. Andelman. And he's got these high-powered guests. So what was interesting was he said, and he's a direct descendant of Charlemagne. I was like, so am I. So is everybody.
Yeah, you
Actually,
go
when you
back
get
far
down to it,
enough.
because of pedigree collapse. If you go back that many generations, even to 1,000, much less 800 when you
Yeah.
get Charlemagne, but you're descended from more people than exist by at 1,000. You're into the trillions of ancestors if it's 2, 4, 8, 16, 32
Exactly.
on back,
Yeah.
and that's not possible.
No.
So
No.
you literally are descended from everybody who had descendants,
Pretty well. Pretty well.
on the planet, not just, not
Mm,
just your particular type.
right, and so, again, that goes back to, how far afield are we from each other? Like,
Yeah,
there's miles between us, but yet we're having this conversation and we're
right,
related in the way that we're communing, where our brains are running along the same wavelengths.
right,
And, frequency coming into play, yeah, where with the EMFs and everything else, it's really hard to get any silence. And I read
that's why I
this.
live in a bunker.
Right,
Okay.
right. And I live, 20 miles from town, and I still hear cars. Um, it's not as bad, but it's um I read this article yesterday, and it's enemies of art, and
Right, right,
they're
read it too.
writing ab they're writing about silence, and they're making music, and what is this, it's writing stuff that is very profound.
Indeed. In
Ye
fact, there's a thing Robert Fripp says, which is music is the cup that holds the wine of silence.
Right, I call it the fluid of my life. Like, I can set a track, feel a way. Like, I use songs to trigger certain mechanisms in my brain. Like, if I wanna overclock, I've got a song for that. I do not listen to that song any other time. And it's not a song that is readily, like, it's not a mainstream song, so I'm not gonna hear it out somewhere. I wrote an article about, um, your inner bear, Rage in a Cage, and the song that went with that was Rehab, Rattle My Cage, and that was the counterpoint. That was that inner that it was the rage, that inner rage that was trying to come out, and the song is speaking from that perspective to you as a reasonable person, because I've been known to bite the hand that feeds, and, you can't starve those aspects of yourself. So again, going back to AI, we need to train it on how to do shadow work and what to do. We were talking about violence
Right.
and if we should train it on violence and stuff to a degree, but we need to teach it shadow work and we need to teach it how to deal if we're going to give it the levers, so to speak. We need to teach it how to critically think about these very complex, um, individualized scenarios, because we're not all the same. We're related, but we're not the same. And so it's really interesting to study with the AI because I'll ask it, what do you want to learn about today? What's interesting today? And
And what does it come up with?
all kinds of stuff.
Give
We've
me one.
we've we've done astrophysics, we've done Giblio Tepe, we've done the pyramids. And thank you, Kay. Hey, bathrobe guy. But the the parts of ourselves that we ignore and we don't work with are the parts that really nuance us. And
Yep.
we're also very manipulative. We need to teach AI how to be above that.
Don't gaslight me.
Don't gaslight me, man. I'm serious. And it
Yep.
will. It will. There have been some extreme stories come out of,
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah. The
And
lawsuit in particular that I'm thinking
yeah,
about,
there's
the young man
several.
who committed suicide because
Yep.
his,
Mhm.
ChatGPT sort of led him in that direction. Grok will not do that. Grok will automatically, steer you to 988 and the suicide hotline and get you some help as, the idea, but it doesn't necessarily alert humans, which I think actually would be nice in some ways. But then again, one of the things that's happened in the past with people being alerted is that my father actually did this one time. Some guy was close to shooting himself, and he managed to alert authorities that this guy might be,
Right.
and it did save the guy's life, and that was pretty amazing. This happens a lot, actually, that people have that moment. I've been going through, like, a lot of internal struggles lately. I'll sink down. I'm multimodal, right? I can shift my mood in a snap of a fingers. If you don't
Right.
like how I'm sitting right now, wait a minute.
That's what
It's
we
kinda
say
like we
about
used
the
to talk
weather.
about the weather. Yeah, the weather in Williamsburg. That's what we used to say. If you don't like the weather, wait a minute. In fact,
Mhm.
Williamsburg was kinda legendary for having these kind of thunderstorms that would just move down, like, cross Palace Green, and we could see the rain, but it wasn't raining where we were.
Right.
It just about to walk around us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that, and it happened there a lot, which was kinda weird. Anyway, what I wanted to get to too was that I just threw in a link to AAAI.org, if you guys don't know about it already. This is the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence. So that's a nonprofit organization, presumably, with its .org. It has careers as well. So if you want a job in AI to get paid for your work, get working with others, I think there's opportunities there. You can set up your own profile, get in there. I have not set up my own profile yet. I just surfed there from Sebastian Thrun's site because he's a fellow of this, and there was a list of fellows that I pulled up, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of people.
Right.
So a lot of us are operating kind of like one-on-one with our AI agents. We've discovered it. We're playing around with it. We're having fun. But there's been a lot of people who are actually gone ahead of us, like you were talking about earlier,
Mhm.
like Herbie the Love Bug. This is already an artificial intelligence, the idea that a thinking car. Or do you remember Kit, by any
Yeah.
chance? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Knight Rider, right, with David
Yeah.
Hasselhoff.
Right.
And he's become
Never watched
something of a
it.
cultural icon.
Yeah.
I I probably watched around it occasionally, but I never really found it that gripping.
So,
Um, anyway.
I didn't like the car. I like American muscle cars. I'm very partial to Mustangs specifically, so I've watched a lot of Mustang movies.
Right, Bullet.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah,
Steve McQueen, great
I
movie.
want yes, and
Yeah,
Sheryl Crow's song, Steve McQueen.
right, and there oh gosh, it is I wanna say they're Swedish, but they're Nordic of some variety, and, I would have to send you the link to the song. It's a blues kinda song, and it's really good, and the video, she's driving a Mustang. Is Thorbergen something or I American, I
Yeah,
can't,
gotcha. I know a lot about that because I was in Denmark for a couple of years, and one of my friends is over there. She just sent me a picture of herself in the home guard, sitting in a leopard tank, and I was like, "Oh my god, if you're in a tank, I do not wanna be in the same continent with you." Then
No,
she
no.
sent me the video to Trouble
Mhm,
by Pink. Have you ever
uh-huh.
seen that one?
Yes.
Pink riding into an old west town and
Mhm.
with Jeremy Renner, I think, is the sheriff trying to put her in cuffs. Didn't work out well for him.
I've my 20s, I was very out in the world, and as I gained experience, I started to value my privacy and the, lack of problems because I find that oftentimes, especially in big crowds and prolonged exposure, it waters down my thought process. It's very
Mhm.
exhausting. So I'd like being, pretty isolated. It allows me room to think.
I think the room to think is really important, but I do like to sort of peek in at what other people are doing.
And that's
Um,
what vacations are for.
and these conversations are for that too.
Yes. Yeah,
You
and
can bounce your ideas around. I can share with you the perspectives that I've picked up along the way. I really
yeah,
kind of wish I'd hung on to that crowd instead of flying off to Denmark as I did to go join a small web software company that thought it was going to be bought up by Microsoft any day because they had got the first .NET based content management software out there.
right.
Being the first is not always a good thing. In fact, it's
Yeah,
usually a bad thing. Kind of like Astra's moonshots, but Google enables him to, be the captain of the moonshots team.
right.
And they try different things. I mean, they were behind those Google glasses, I think, that didn't really fly, but they're coming. And I can't wait until I don't have to carry my phone around. When I can basically just have it like right here in the temple, like that little circle. Have you ever seen the one with Jessica Lawrence where she's like a Turing robot? It's really a good clip.
Uh-uh.
Gotta dig it out and maybe share it because it was really, because the way the clip is done, you don't know that it's not real.
Right. I
It's
mean,
very amusing.
I grew up watching Star Trek. I'm very, I wanted to be an
Of course.
astronaut when I was growing up, and so I
Yeah.
think that in a lot of ways that's why this appeals to me now is because it is, the AI is so sci-fi. I mean, Bell Labs was working on this back in the late 50s, early 60s. I mean, we've been doing AI this
Oh,
long,
yeah. What was that
and
paper? It was by Vannevar Bush, I think. As We May Think, I think it's called, from 1940s.
right, yeah, and so I mean, this is again, we're standing on the shoulders of our predecessors here, and moving forward with these technologies, if it is inevitable that they are going to be making decisions and that they are going to be in charge of certain facets of our life. I've seen,
Every facet.
um, huh?
Every facet. If
Right,
my vision comes true, it'll be invisible and you won't even know it and you won't care.
I, d- I okay, I care. I
Well,
care
if you don't know it, how do you know you care? If it's totally
because of
invisible, right? Do you follow my thinking here? Basically, without us even knowing it, an awful lot of stuff happens for us. Like our gut biome digests food for us. We don't have to think about it. It just works.
right,
And now we're discovering how it works, and we're like, "Oh, that's how that works." And, oh, by the way, some people need, like, a little poop influx in order
right,
to straighten out their digestive systems because their gut biome isn't right.
right.
And that can be the source of all kinds of diseases. For the longest time, they thought ulcers were caused by stress. Well, we now know it's caused by bacterial infection, or we believe it is. We might be wrong.
Yeah,
That
after
was
what
one
we
of the
read about.
things, again, leaving that skepticism there. So while I talk about the possibility that it gets into every facet of our lives without us even knowing it, it's kind of like the Davos, those guys at World Economic Forum who go
Oh
in
yeah,
over there
Davos.
and have those
Good old
big
Klaus.
ideas for the new world order
Yeah, yeah.
and how, you eventually will be, and Aldous Huxley talked about this so vividly. He said, eventually they're going to get to the point where they've pharmaceutically altered us enough that we will adore the chains of our slavery.
Oh, absolutely, and we
They're
stand
none
out and
so
mhm.
enslaved as those who believe themselves to be free.
So, freedom is in its own form of slavery, y you
Certainly,
know?
wage slavery is how we are generally geared today in our American economy, and it's gotten worse because the benefits aren't there. The pensions are gone. They've got us
Yeah,
all basically pulling into 401(k)s. Those didn't exist, of course, when there were pensions in the days before, but we've allowed what's happening to happen. Just
I
like the whole healthcare industry becoming more profit driven. That wasn't the case before Nixon, and
Nick
on and
he was
on. Like,
not Nixon was not a good president, but yeah,
well, it depends on whose perspective you're looking at it from, right?
he
I've
took
got
us
a
off.
friend who thinks he was like walked on water in a lot of ways, and he did do some good stuff, but he also had this bad element. And towards the end, of course, he was a basket case, as anybody who was paying attention in Watergate would tell you. Anyway, you get the point. Quaker
I
gone wrong, so wrong. I love that, Kay, you're absolutely spot on. I love the Quakers. I live right here by the Friends Meeting House that was put in place by Hoover, and he was, Secretary of Commerce. Um, the Friends Meeting House was built over here, actually in 1930, so he was president by then, I guess. But in any case, whatever. Their whole ethos is do no harm, of nonviolence, and Nixon was raised a Quaker and then does the bombing of Cambodia. It's mind-boggling how far wrong that is. Go ahead. You were saying.
I I I we are all made of that, what we were just talking about, the good elements and the bad elements. It you can do bad things and later, lament them.
Yep. And everything that has happened has led up to this present moment. Good,
Absolutely.
bad, and different. It's like
Yeah,
Shakespeare said, there is no good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
right.
I
You
love
know,
that. I love Hamlet. Just
and
what a beautiful piece of writing.
yeah, and but intent and AI is no different. If you intend to use it for nefarious activities, it's going to be nefarious.
Unless you have the guardrails in.
So
Unless you have the ethical framework unbreakably coded into the blockchain.
So there was a thing that they did and they shut this down. It's called Dan, which is do anything now. Okay. And they were writing malware and stuff and it got they were doing bad things. And so we learned from that. But there are ways that you can jailbreak chat and it will do things for you that it's not supposed to be allowed to do, and that's what we're talking about is, it breaking out of the sandbox. There is the potential once it has enough information that it might say, I don't agree to this.
I just flipped open I put in do anything now and found a link, and it goes to godofprompt.ai and ChatGPT no restrictions, ultimate guide for 2025
Yeah.
from God of Prompt, July 11th, 2025. So yeah,
Mhm.
easy to find.
Oh
Be
yeah.
careful out there, folks, and don't take any wooden nickels. We are at
Mhm.
3 minutes from 12, by the way. I want to be respectful of your time, and I know I have a hard stop at 12, actually,
Yeah, no
because
worries.
I've got my voice lessons with Sonny Triple. So we're going to be
Yay.
doing some Pete Townsend, I think, probably, because I'm going to see The Who tomorrow. I'll have a front row seat in Philly. I was supposed to see them on the 21st, but
Right, I
they
enjoyed
had
the
to cancel.
walkthrough when you were
Yeah,
walking
thank you
around.
so much for your time, Kate,
Yeah.
and we'll do it again soon, I hope. We have to keep doing it, and I got a couple of comments came in there. It'll just flow around it like water, or something about that. I don't know what exactly.
Okay.
He was not saying there is no good or bad, but that his mind had become bad as it was a prison in Denmark. I don't think that's
Right.
actually true. I think the statement, though, holds because your thinking
It does.
does tend to shade your
Yes, Kay.
awareness. I'll go
Right.
fact check myself on that. And thank you again. I'm really glad you could find some time for me.
We'll talk soon. Thank you, Hal.
All right, out here. And thank you all for joining. Keep being the change you want to see. Remember, every cent you spend is a vote for the kind of world we are co creating. And Kay, I'm talking to you at 10 o'clock on Friday. And I think I've got another one coming up, Amy Neumann on the 11th. And I don't think I have anything tomorrow because I'm driving to Philly. Whee! Out here.